Welcome back, and this is Mrs. Mulchaney who will be DJing your notes for Unit 3. I'm in the front cover of my notebook. I filled in my Unit 3 notes right here so that the topics are filled in for you. Once you get your unit of study and you've added in that Unit 3, turn in your notebook until you've run into some blank pages. We're going to leave this page blank, and this one we're going to label as Unit 3 fractions. And then once you have that labeled, you can turn the page. And we're going to start with modeling fractions. So, modeling fraction multiplication is something new for you. Fraction multiplication is also something totally new as a sixth grader. You can use a multiplication chart, but for this, we're actually just going to draw pictures. So you're going to want some colored pencils. I like blue, yellow, and green. You could also do red, blue, and purple, whatever makes you happy. So the first problem we're going to do is we're going to solve 1/3 times 1/2 using a model. And this little dot, it might be also new to you. That means multiplication. So I would definitely point that out if you don't know that the dot means multiplication. So the first thing that we need to do in order to solve this model is we need to draw some boxes. So I like to say, I'm sorry, box. Well, before I get to the boxes, let's talk about this. So my two fractions, my step one is going to be to draw 1/3. So that's step one. Step two is draw 1/2. And then step three, we're going to overlay them. Okay. So for step one, we need to draw 1/3. So I'm going to go down 3 lines in my notebook and cut that into thirds. And then I'm going to take my blue colored pencil and I'm going to cut 1/3 or color 1/3. All right. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a half. So I'm still going to go down 3 lines because that's what my original was. I'm going to cut that shape in half, and I'm going to use my yellow colored pencil to color half of that yellow. So now I have my two pictures. I have a 1/3 and I have a 1/2. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to overlay them. So we're going to redraw the first picture down 3 lines, cut it into thirds. I'm going to color it blue, just like we did for the first picture. And then I'm going to draw the second picture right on top of it. So I need my yellow, and the second picture goes right on top. And I'm going to use my green color too so I can see better. Mine's really hard to see, but if you're using colored pencils, it might show up better. So that I have an overlapped piece that is green. And the reason that we're doing this is if you think of a grid is if you do length times width, will give you the whole area. So we're doing an area model with fractions. And so if we look at this picture, we drew the first fraction, which was 1/3. We drew the second fraction, which was 1/2. And then we overlaid them on top of each other to try to find the solution. Well, the overlapping piece, which is right here, the part that turned green, is actually the solution because that's the area that is overlapped. So the answer for this is 1, because there's 1 green tile, over 6 total tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 green over 6 total. So it's kind of like a ratio. Good thing we learned that already. So the answer comes from the double colored squares over the total squares. So that's how you're going to get your answer. Okay, let's try another one. So solve 2/3 times 1/4 using a model. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to draw 2/3, and then we'll draw 1/4, and then we'll have the overlap. So let's draw 2/3. Because the denominator is 3, I'm going to go down 3 lines. Cut it into thirds. I'm going to use my notebook paper to do some work for me. And I need to shade in 2 to show 2/3. Use my blue. Okay, the next one I have to draw is my 1/4. So I'm going to draw the rectangle the same size, so 3 lines down. And I'm going to cut that into fourths. I have to draw 3 lines because I want 4 pieces. And I'm going to color 1/4 yellow. And if you need to, you can also put in a multiplication symbol here so you can see that they're being multiplied. And now I'm going to find the area. I'm going to multiply them together. So I'm going to redraw my first picture, which was that 2/3. And then I'm going to redraw my second picture right on top. So I'm going to cut this in half, just redraw it just like it looks over here. And when they overlap, the colors will mix. Mine's hard to see, so I'm going to color mine. And the overlap part is the solution. So right here, these boxes that are green are the solution because they are where the two fractions overlap with each other. So the solution for this one is 2, because there's 2 green pieces, over total. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total. And you don't need to simplify when you're modeling. I'm perfectly okay if you leave it as just a unsimplified fraction. All right, next thing I would love for you to do is I want you to try one on your own. So you need to try to solve 3/4 times 1/3 using a model. Go ahead, pause the video here and go ahead and draw your pictures and see if you can get the solution. So I hope that you were able to make it at least this far on your own. I'm going to walk you through how to draw the overlap again. So I'm going to redraw my first picture, which has the blue colorings. And that was the 3/4. And then I'm going to redraw the picture with the yellow colorings, which is 1/3. So I'm going to draw the third cut, and then I'm going to color yellow. And then those overlap pieces will turn green. So now for my solution, these pieces are your solution where they turned green, or they overlapped. And there's 1, 2, 3 of them. So the solution is 3 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pieces. And that's how you should have gotten your answer for that one. Now, the last thing that we have to talk about is sometimes when you're solving these problems, they're just going to give you the grid, and you have to work backwards to pull the overlay into 2 separate pictures so you can figure out what problem they're asking you to solve. So if we look at our example, what problem is represented? Well, we're only given this one grid, but I can pull it apart into rows and columns. So I'm going to pull my rows and my columns. So my rows, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So I'm going to redraw this with 4 rows. And if I look across the rows, the whole way to the end, there are 2 rows that are colored. So I'm going to get my colored pencil out and I'm going to color 2 of those rows the whole way across. And then I need to look at the columns. And I'm going to draw the same picture and I have to cut it into 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. And if I look at my picture, this first column is the only one that is shaded all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to use my yellow colored pencil to match it, and I'm going to color that column to match the picture. Now I have to look, okay, well, if my blue picture is this, that's the fraction 2/4, and I'm multiplying it times the column picture, which is 1/4. So this is the problem that they're asking you to solve. So the last thing that we're going to do for modeling fractions is I would like for you to try to figure out what problem is being represented. Okay, so I drew your rows and the columns, and I saw that there were 3 rows, because if I look 1, 2, 3 across the rows, there are 3 of them. And if I look across the top, only one of them is shaded and it is blue. So I'm going to shade the first row blue. And then I can look at the columns and I can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So I made 5 columns, but only 2 of them are shaded all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to shade 2 of my columns all the way to the bottom. And then your fraction that you should have gotten for that one would have been 1/3 for this picture times 2/5. And that should have been your answer for your U-Try. Thank you for watching your video on modeling fractions.